let's take this potato and make it into cake. So the first thing we're going to do is get our parchment paper and line the inside of our baking pan. So an easy way to cut this is to tear the parchment paper, and then we're going to fold it once towards us. And then fold it again the opposite way. And then we're going to have the two corners match. So match them up so you have a point. And then do it one more time, almost like a paper airplane. And then you're going to flip over your baking pan. Put the point in the middle of the bottom, and then you're going to crease where it gets to the side. And then once you make your crease, you're going to cut your parchment paper on the crease line, and it's going to be curved. Flip over your pan, unfold your parchment paper, and set it down in the bottom, and this will prevent your cake from sticking to the bottom. Alright, so now we're going to get started on making the cake. Now this is a super moist chocolate fudge cake from Walmart, and I do buy it pre-packaged, and so I'm just going to cut the top off. And then pour it into my mixing bowl. I then add the amount of water that is in the recipe on the back of the box for the cake mix. I then add the amount of oil that it says on the back of the box for this particular cake mix. So I like to add the oil while the mixture is mixing. That way it'll mix in a little bit better and a little bit more even. I'm then going to add my 3 eggs to my mixture. I'm then going to mix my batter with a spatula just to make sure that all the powder is wet and incorporated. In the next part of this video, you see me struggling to get my mixing bowl off of my mixer. And then I finally get it. Here I'm using cooking spray to spray the bottom of my pans and the sides of my pans really good so the cake does not stick anywhere. So after spraying the pans, you want to make sure that your parchment paper is on top of the pan that you have sprayed, and it is stuck down really good and there's no air bubbles in it, so the batter does not get underneath the parchment paper. So I used 8-inch pans for this particular cake because I didn't want it to be too big and have too many layers. So I'm equally distributing the batter in both of these pans that have been greased and have the parchment paper at the bottom. Make sure to get all the batter. And then I'm gonna give them a good shake and then toss them on the counter to release any air bubbles that are in the batter. And into the oven they go at 375. And we'll let these cook for about 25 minutes. Now we're ready to make our chocolate whipped icing. We're first going to start with heavy whipping cream. So we're going to add 2 cups of heavy whipping cream to our chilled bowl. And of course I'm making a mess, but that's okay. We're then going to start whipping our heavy whipping cream for about 1 minute or so and see where it's at after that 1 minute. Now I like to put this shield on just to prevent any splatter all over the kitchen. And you want to check your heavy whipping cream once it has whipped to soft peaks. Now it's time to add in the chocolate flavoring, and I use chocolate instant pudding. I end up using about half of a larger bag of pudding. So my whipped frosting was a little bit thicker than I'd like, but it'll work. Now if you'd like, you can add a little bit of powdered sugar. I just sprinkle it in. And then we'll cover the frosting and put it to the side for now. And now it's time to take out the cakes. And now you want to check your cake batter to make sure it's cooked all the way through with a toothpick. Poke it in, and if it comes out clean, then you're good to go. And then we're going to pop it in the freezer so it'll chill a little faster and set up a little more. All right, so here are the things we're going to put on the top of our potato. We got Sour Punch straws, Twizzlers, and some white chocolate. We're going to grate the white chocolate to look like cheese in just a minute. And we're going to cut our Sour Punch straws and our Twizzlers. So first we're going to start with the Sour Punch straws. Pick out the green ones. These will be our chives on the top of our potato cake. And then we're going to take our Twizzlers and take these out. Now these are the bites, but you can use actual Twizzlers if you would like. And then white chocolate, we're gonna get like 2 squares of that and start grating it for the cheese. So now we're going to cut the Sour Punch straws into chives. You're going to cut them thinly with your kitchen shears. And done. Alright, so now we're going to cut the Twizzlers to make them look like little bacon bits that will go on top of our cake. And those are done. Alright, so I'm going to take a cardboard cake plate. I believe this is a 9-inch round, and I'm going to cut it into the shape of a potato. And we're going to use this as a template to cut our cake later. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our cakes out of our cake pans that have been cooled in the freezer. Now I like to cut around the edges just to make sure there's nothing hanging on, flip them upside down, and where our parchment paper has been, it comes straight out very easily. And then we just peel that off and throw that away. And it's that easy. Okay, so after we've taken them out, we're going to level off our cakes. Keep the tops of them because you will need it later. So we're going to set this to the side and then do the same with the other cake. Alright, so now we're going to get our template that we made earlier and get our frosting. We're going to put some frosting on the bottom of our cake plate so our cake doesn't move around on our plate. So I'm going to choose one of the bottom pieces of cake and put that at the bottom of my potato cake. I'm going to put that on a cake plate, make sure it's pressed down good, and then cut along the edge of the template that we cut earlier as best as you can. Then we're going to add another layer of frosting on top of that cake layer. And then we're going to add the next bottom layer of cake on top of that and cut that as well, as close as we can to the template. Now, if I were to do this again, I would put both of my cakes on there and I would make 2 templates so I could have one on the top and one on the bottom. That way I could more easily follow my template. But the more you do it, the more you learn, right? Alright, so now I'm going to add some frosting to the top of my cake. And it's a little crumbly, so I'm going to wait to do the sides until later. And then after I put some icing on the top, I'm going to smooth it all out. And then we are going to put it back in the freezer after we put our top on. So we're going to put the top on. I've used a top of one of the cakes that we cut off. And then put that in the freezer for about an hour or so. That way it sets up really well. Alright, so now we're getting ready to roll out our fondant. So we're putting some parchment paper down so it doesn't stick to the counter. And I'm going to be using pre-made fondant from Walmart because I didn't have time to make marshmallow fondant this time. So I'm going to use about half of this brown chocolate fondant, and then I'm going to cut about 1/3 off of the white chocolate fondant, and then I'm going to put the two together, the bigger of the white and then half of the chocolate to make the brown color of the potato. So you're first going to knead the dough just to make it a little softer and more pliable. And then what I'm going to do after I've kneaded both of them is I'm going to knead them together. And I'm just going to continue to fold over, and then fold over again, and just keep folding over until it's all mixed together and it's not marbled anymore. And here's our finished color. So we're going to set this to the side, but first we're going to wrap it in saran wrap just to make sure it doesn't dry out or anything while we wait. Alright, and now we've taken our cake out of the freezer and we are going to cover it with frosting. So I covered the top first and I changed my mind. I thought I'm gonna shave this off just a little bit more, just to make it a little more potato-y looking. Alright, and so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my turning plate and put my potato on top of that and put it to the side. And we're going to start rolling out our fondant in just a minute. So I'm going to unwrap it and get that ready to go. So again, doing it on parchment paper. And I'm going to cover my cake with frosting before I put the fondant on, so the fondant has something to stick to. That's a very important part. Alright, so now I'm going to roll out our fondant. So I'm going to roll it as thin as I can get it without breaking or tearing. And so now I'm going to cut out our potato shape because I know I won't need a perfect circle. So I'm going to cut out a potato shape and then continue to roll it into a thinner sheet. So once we've got our thin sheet of fondant, I'm going to drape it over my cake, and then I'm going to smooth out any air bubbles or wrinkles that I have. And then I'm going to use my kitchen shears to cut off the extra because I have a lot of extra. And then I'm going to go around the bottom just to make sure the bottom of my fondant is secure. And then I'm going to start adding just a little bit of icing on the top just to make it look almost dirty like a potato would, to give it some dimension. I'm then going to take some brown food coloring and use a brush to brush on the spots of my potato. I'm then going to add the little dents and the little holes with the opposite side of my paintbrush, just all around the cake. Now, in order to make my potato a baked potato, I need to cut it open. Now, we don't want to cut the whole thing open, so I'm just going to cut the top half and take up the fondant, and I'm going to make a little place to put our quote-unquote sour cream and our chives and bacon and cheese. So we're going to use Cool Whip topping for our sour cream. So we're going to spoon that out and put it on the top inside the two little flaps. And once we've added our whipped cream, we're going to add our Twizzler pieces for our bacon. And we're going to spread them all on the whipped cream. And now we're going to add our sour punch straws that we cut up for our chives. And last but not least, let's add our cheese to the very top. And there you have it, a chocolate cake with chocolate icing potato cake. From this potato to a delicious potato cake that is completely edible and so yummy. Thanks for watching.